All right, everybody, welcome to the first ever episode of Ken's Counseling Couch. I am glad that you're here today, either in person, live, or watching it afterwards. This video is very important to me and touches a topic that has not only hit home for myself, but people very close to me and my family, and others that have meant a lot to me, or people I've worked with. It impacted the mission I worked in while in the military. We lost someone to this, and it's suicide, especially around the holidays. As I've mentioned before on other live streams, but I'll tell it again, twice in my life now I've tried to kill myself. Once by hanging, the other by holding a gun to my head with my wife staring at me, crying, begging me not to do it. And looking back, that's some of the hardest shit I've ever had to go through. And I regret making the ones I love have to deal with it. But I can never disagree with the fact that I'm glad I'm still here. And I'm glad I'm able to continue making an impact on my life and on the people close to me, and especially doing the job I do working in counseling and being able to help other people. It's important to me to be able to do that. And I'm going to start out the stream by showing one video and maybe jumping into a second one. And I think I've shown these before when we were on the Knuckleheads podcast on one of theirs. But these are two videos that when I'm depressed and when I'm going down the road of darkness, I like to go to, because it helps recenter me and helps me remember that I am important and that I am, important in other people's lives as well, and that I do have something to live for. So I'm going to cue this up real quick and we'll go ahead and play it.
I'm not leaving without you.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Those men are after me. It's my problem, not yours.
You made it my problem the moment you walked into the ocean.
I didn't ask for your help. Let me go.
No.
Why not? What difference does it make to you?
Have you ever seen the aftermath of a suicide bombing?
We're wasting time.
I have. June 29th, 2003. I was meeting two associates at the Marouche restaurant in Tel Aviv. As my car was pulling up, a 20-year-old Palestinian named Ghazi Safar entered the restaurant and detonated a vest-wired with C4. The shockwave knocked me flat, blew out my eardrums. I couldn't hear. The smoke, it was like being underwater. I went inside, a nightmare, blood, parts of people. You could tell where Safar was standing when the vest blew. It was like a perfect circle of death. There was almost nothing left of the people closest to him. 17 dead, 46 injured, blown to pieces. The closer they were to the bomber, the more horrific the effect. That's every suicide. Every single one. An act of terror perpetrated against everyone who's ever known you. Everyone who's ever loved you. The people closest to you, the ones who cherish you, are the ones who suffer the most pain, the most damage. Why would you do that? Why would you do that to people who love you?
I have no choice.
There's always a choice.
And I know that video can be difficult to watch for some people, and even while I watched it, I had to mute my mic so I wouldn't cry, and kind of maintain my composure a bit, because it does hit that much home for me. And while some people disagree with the wording and the context in it, I believe that video and that clip in less than 2 minutes perfectly describes the impact that suicide has and how much pain it causes. If I were to draw a map, if of the people in my family, you know, I have my wife, I have my siblings, I have my parents, my coworkers, my friends, the people I spend the most time with, the people I am closest to, they're the ones that are going to suffer the most if I'm gone. If I decide to off myself one day. It's a very profound thing to think about. It's very hard to think about. But it does feel sometimes like there's no escape. And this is something I've struggled with for years now. And I'm a counselor. I work with people, I work with kids, I work with adults. Some people who are depressed, some people who have other things going on, some people who have been suicidal. It doesn't stop me from doing my job. If anything, it helps me do my job better because I know what it's like to feel an absolute sense of darkness and having people trying to reach out to you, and no matter how hard they're trying, they cannot get through. If you've ever had someone in that situation, ever tried to reach out to someone and there's nothing you can say, there's nothing that's coming out of your mouth or anything that you're showing to them, and they're not getting it, that's not necessarily their fault. It's really hard to break through that barrier when someone is at that point. And at that point, it's the time where you want to show unconditional love. It's where you want to do everything you can to be that person. They can shoot you down. They can call you names. They can call you an asshole. You can be showing them all the love and care in the world, and they'll tell you you don't care. And it's hard to be that person and sit there and listen to it. But you're starting the process. You're letting them see it. They may not express it, but they're starting to see it. And that's what matters. That's how you begin to break through that barrier. Especially if you're depressed and someone's telling you that. They're not sitting there and hitting you with all this information and spending minutes or hours or days talking to you, texting you, checking up on you, making sure you're okay, making sure you're healthy, making sure you're safe, making sure if you did do something, you go and see a doctor, you go and see a counselor, you go and talk to someone. They do care about you, especially if you're close to them. You know, this first episode, this first show was prompted by some things that went down recently over the last few weeks and few months in the Rekieta Law Discord. One member or two members I've seen, at least from my understanding, have been struggling with the thoughts of suicide and the thoughts of self-harm. And that's not an easy thing to deal with. It is very hard to walk away from. It's not always something you want to have to think about. There have been times where I've been stupid levels of depressed, and I wanted nothing more than to not feel that way. Even though I was on meds, even though I had good things going for me in my life, I could not bring myself out of it. It was incredibly sad and incredibly horrific to deal with. You're sitting there as someone who, you know good things are going on in your life. You do have shit that's not going right. But you want to feel happy and you can't. And that's not your fault. That's your brain. That's your neurotransmitters, all of the fun shit in your brain and your body outside of your control. And I hate seeing it. I hate the shit it does to people. And, pardon my language, but I am very, very passionate about this. And I want people to be able to not only reach out to me if they're going through this. Yes, I get paid to do this. Yes, I'm, practicing in a certain state at a certain location. Obviously, I'm not going to dox myself. I'm not going to be your real counselor. I'm not going to be your professional counselor. But if you're in that moment and you're that depressed, there's nothing wrong with reaching out to myself or reaching out to anyone else on this team of people in the, it's like the supporters in the Discords or forums or wherever you may, socialize with your family, your friends, your coworkers. Reach out to somebody. It doesn't have to be me. One thing I sit down and talk to kids with all the time, every single client I have that's a child, I ask them if they have at least one person they can tell their most embarrassing secrets to, the things that upset them most, the things that they're afraid to talk to their parents about, talk to their teachers about. That person you have absolute trust in. And having that is such a huge impact on people's lives. And I tell my clients, I don't expect you to tell me everything, but I want you to have one person you can. I understand I'm a stranger. I understand this is the first time you met me, and this is the first hour we're spending together, especially kids, even older kids, 10, 12, 14. What's the reason to start trusting me out at the gate? There isn't. So while I'm building that relationship, I need to make sure they have someone that's able to support them while going through that process. So I want to be able to make an impact in the social communities I have online. I hope that the things I've done so far have been able to do that. And I'm hoping that by starting this, by engaging in streams on my own and engaging in videos on my own, that I can start to make an impact elsewhere in the world. And it's not me being content as a part of another person's show or another person's stream, which I love being invited to, I have absolute enjoyment with. But especially with the holidays coming up, it's a very, very difficult time to go through. And it's very easy to start to slide down those things if you haven't talked to family in a while, if you haven't been able to go out and do things. But that doesn't mean you're alone. That doesn't mean you can't have people there supporting you. And it seems like I have some audio issues, so give me 1 second while I restart my audio engine. Okay, it should be back now. Is that working? My voice is also a little bit hoarse today, so that's possible why that's like that. So if I could get some feedback in the chat, that would be appreciated. Also, we have a guest today, someone I've spoke with on a few occasions who has some experience with this in his own way, who is a member of the Rakita Law Discord as well. I'm going to welcome to the stream Kek7Go. Kek7Go, you're on the stream. Welcome to the stream, buddy.
Thank you. Good evening, Ken.
Nice to talk to you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing great. And again, I apologize to the people listening. I know my audios are a little bit hoarse because I'm a little bit hoarse today. I haven't been feeling the best. So hopefully I'll be doing better my next go around. I did Boomer this my first go around about an hour ago. So
if it was not Boomer, it is not Rakita Law Server product.
That is true. That is the, I think, virus that is being connected with that is anyone who touches it, you're going to become a boomer in some form or fashion. There's millennials who are boomers. There's Gen Z or whatever the fuck the new ones are that are boomers. So welcome all boomers. So I know we were talking before, Kek, about some different things that you have experience with. So why don't you go ahead and fill me in and fill the people watching in on your history, your background, and thoughts on this stuff.
So specifically about the topic at hand, I have been struggling with depression for a long time. It's only past couple of years that I actually gotten very good at about it. The let's see where to go. I guess where the things really started, the dominoes started to fall was sorry, it's not not too easy to talk about. It's a friend of mine. We were
It's
at
okay.
the because I don't drink. I'm the forever driver, and I drove my friend home, and I can always go back to that moment and remember it when talking in the car and translate it into English. The last thing that I tell him that, hey, we're gonna see tomorrow, right? And he says, yeah. And the next day I find out that I was the last person that I saw him alive, and he had killed himself during that night.
I'm really sorry to hear that happen.
At
Yeah,
first,
and that sounds difficult to talk about. So thank you for sharing.
at first, because of the usual societal pressures, like you're a man, you're supposed to handle these things, and at first, it felt like I was handling it okay, but I started to go back to that night over and over and over again, asking myself that what I did wrong. What is something I said? What is something I didn't say? Something I didn't notice?
So you immediately kind of went to self blame, like it was your fault.
Yes, quite
Well,
soon after the event, because
what?
nobody knew why it happened. So you start to try to reason with yourself, like why did it happen? And because I was the last one, I started to find from that singular event that what went wrong.
And did you ever find out either during the initial stages or in the weeks or months following what actually
Sad.
led up to that?
No, no, it's no.
Was it a sudden change of direction for him? Was he outwardly appearing happy, or was he kind of going through some stuff at the time?
He was always like he was. That's the thing that hurts the most.
So to you, it wasn't any different than your normal friend, than
Yeah,
friend you see every day.
yeah.
So that's the shock. That's where it hits you.
That's but probably why it affected me as much as it did, and it kept affecting me for longest time. This is why I failed at university. It's shut me down. You start to feel when you start going through that event over and over again, you start blaming yourself. You start thinking like that you're useless, that you can't even save one person. So just
And that's
get
sometimes a lot of pressure to put on yourself, even if you're not intending to do it.
mm. I tried reaching out about these feelings to my parents, but my parents being a bit traditional boomers just told me to get unsad, just
They really
get
treated
happy.
it like that.
Yes.
I'm sorry to hear that. That's I don't I don't really know how to. It hurts when I hear that. It hurts when I have clients who tell me that, like especially kids. My dad tells me this or my mom tells me that. I shouldn't feel sad. I have no reason to feel sad. And even if you had no part to play in it, you can still feel sad. If and it's very likely you had no responsibility for what happened.
I know now.
It's now how do you know now versus then?
Uh, years of psychologist, and I managed to deal with it finally after I got medication because, like they say, it takes off the peaks. It allows you a peace of mind to rationalize things. And what was maybe the breakthrough moment for me was my psychologist told me that I have right to be angry at what happened to me.
So
Sorry.
you had a right to be angry at. Oh, it's okay. You don't have to apologize for being upset. I'd rather you let it out. And that's one thing I tell everyone. Don't hold your feelings back. It is no different than a balloon. You can only put so much air into it before it explodes.
Mm.
That's how I held a gun to my head. I did not deal with my own shit. And I had a loaded gun to my head and was watching my wife crying, begging me not to kill myself. And I had my finger on the trigger and I was ready to pull it. I was ready to fucking pull it.
I'm sorry to
And
hear that.
and I am too, but it was an experience that I kind of needed. And even though it's horrible to say that, and it caused a lot of trauma for my wife, I needed to hit that rock bottom so I could come up from it. So I knew what it looked like, because now I know what that looks like. And now I know how to make a difference with that. I know how to change my life and how to recognize my own signs when I'm getting low. The video I showed, I don't think you got the chance to see it. It's like a 2-minute video. It perfectly describes suicide to me. And it is something that if I'm starting to hit that low, I'll go and watch it, because it helps me recenter myself. It helps come back to what really is important and the things that matter, and that I do matter, and there are people who care about me.
Mm.
So let me ask you this. You said it took you a long time, and through therapy and stuff and psychologists, and you said that your psychologist told you had a right to be angry at what happened for you, or explain that more if you don't mind.
That I have the right to be angry at the person that what they did to me in a
So
way that
so you can be
you know,
angry at your friend for what he did.
yes, I still love him. I still cherish the moments we have, but what he did was quite shitty towards me.
And it caused you a lot of pain.
It's
And
as because it still does affect me, but it's over 10 years ago, but still it affects me like this.
it's like it's yesterday. Doesn't really go away, does
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
That's like the video I showed at the beginning. The people closest to you are the ones that suffer the most damage. So if you were very close to this person, they're going to be the ones that you're going to be one of those people. They're going to be one of the people that hurt. They're going to be one of the people that suffer, and it's unfortunate and it's sad and depressing, and it absolutely sucks to see, and it sucks to go through, both on the side of dealing with the depression and wanting to end your life, and being the person on the opposite side, because I've been the person on the phone with friends or family or other people trying to get them away from that line, who were very close to it, who were wanting to cross it, think there's no other answer, and there is, and that's the thing, is it's hard to get them to see.
Oh, absolutely. I talk with people who have these thoughts, and to clarify, I'm not a psychologist. I have no degree in this, so I always tell them that I cannot offer professional help. I can offer a lot of sympathy. I can offer my life story, but I always recommend that you go to a professional about these feelings, because that's where I failed, where I didn't do it, and it caused a lot of damage to me because I wasn't
Because it
able to deal with these things in a way that was healthy or productive.
and it's hard to really want to address it too, because having to address it means having to assign responsibility, having to assign feelings to it. You can only blame yourself so far. You're not the person who finalized the action. Even if you had a lot of actions leading up to it, you still weren't the person who finished it. You weren't the person who pulled the trigger or stepped off the stool. As morbid as it is to say that, And, even thinking about, stuff I've dealt with in my life and other people that are close to me, it hurts to just hear what they've gone through. I have a friend who was, gang raped when she was underage. She was like, I think, somewhere between, 9 and 13 when it happened, if I'm remembering correctly, by a couple people or two or three people. And hearing that and the things it's caused her is horrible to deal with. I described in chat the other day a client of mine who his dad is pushing him to continue a sport so much that he would rather not have anything for Christmas just to be able to stop playing. It causes him that much stress, and he is 12 years old. He has no reason to be in that much stress over a fucking sport. And then I have to go to this week. It's going to be a very difficult session to sit the family down and have dad understand why he needs to let off of his son playing the sport because of how much injury it's causing him mentally. Because dad's trying to live through his son in a way and has an irrational thought of his son being a failure by not being able to do anything but play a sport. If you don't play a sport, you'll be a failure in life. That's a very irrational thought. But when you're being told that, and anytime you try to do something about it to make yourself feel better, you get shot down, get horrible language used towards you. Why the hell do you think people end up hurting themselves or cutting themselves or killing themselves? When the people that are supposed to love you and care about you, especially like your parents, are treating you that way. And we have Ninja Bread Man in chat. He says, those closest are left to pick up the pieces and the ones who tend to blame themselves for not doing enough to help and are the ones who tend to blame themselves. And this is very true. It's kind of what you experienced, You were very close to it. You had someone who gave away no intention or no expression of anything wrong. And I'm sure over the years you've picked apart every day, every hour, every minute of those days leading up to it, the weeks or months, and could not find a single thing. Absolutely. I've done that for people who have been, very close to it or came very close to finishing it. Did I do something wrong? And I know better to blame myself, but I still do it. That's why when you talk about therapy and counseling, you can't counsel a family member or a friend. You're too close to it. There's too much bias. Even though I'm a counselor and I know all the techniques, all the methods, how I'm supposed to work through depression, how I'm supposed to help someone deal with it. Even I have to have my own counselor because I need someone to give me that insight. It's not always easy to be able to, recognize what's going on. It's hard to understand, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I've actually heard that it's quite common that, therapists, counselors, and psychologists have their own mental health professionals working with them.
Oh, it's extremely common.
So, on a more lighthearted side, it kind of feels like there's this Ouroboros of, psychologists, just talking to each other about their problems.
We also have to think about some of the things we deal with. We're dealing with dozens of people's problems. We have to take that in. If someone walks into my office and tells me they were raped, I can't get upset and lose it over that in the moment. I can get upset with them. I can help work with them through it. But, that's not always something you can leave at the door and leave at work. It does follow you home. I've had shit follow me home. I was bitching in chat the other day about this 12-year-old whose dad is pressing him so hard on sports. And, on a personal level, it pisses me off. And I just want this kid to not feel this much stress that his entire days, 7 days a week, he isn't getting home until like right before bed. and he's barely eating dinner. Like they're picking up fast food or they're eating a quick dinner. Gonna get ready for bed. Barely has time for homework. Has no time for himself, and he's just got so much going on. And I can tell he's depressed, even if he's not showing it. His mom knows he's depressed. His sister, while his parents are going through a divorce right now, his sister has said out loud that she has thought about killing herself. She's 10 years old. Why is a 10-year-old having to say that? Because of how much stress is going on in the family. Why are we not dealing with it? And that's the one thing that the mom realized. It was time to come see a counselor, to come get help. And I'm glad they walked in the door and I was able to pick up the phone and schedule them an appointment. I don't want to see that family in the same situation you had to deal with. They're family. They're very close. Your friend sounds like he was essentially family, the way you describe it.
I kind of, time has changed things. Or was he? I can't really say for certain. I know he was a friend, but I don't have that many close in real life relationship with people. But that's just kind of like the nature of me. I'm very introverted and very antisocial by nature. So any person that I interact, in real life kind of didn't feel like, a close friend, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. And, I'm on the chat and I do other things, but I'm mostly outgoing, but I'm not always the most social either. I have, I think, 3 people I could consider friends that I would trust with pretty much anything, that I've told pretty much anything. The worst shit, the weird shit, everything. And it doesn't matter that I only have 3 people that are important or close to me. What matters is the quality of those relationships. If you have 100 people who are your friends and those relationships are piss poor, it really doesn't matter. But if you have 3, 4, 2, 1 people that are, the people you can trust, that you can go to, you can call at 3 in the morning and say, hey, I'm going through something right now and it's not okay. They're the people who will, they won't care that they have to be at work in 5 hours. They'll call off work. They'll spend the next 8 hours on the phone with you. They'll come pick you up. They'll come sit with you. They'll take you to the hospital. They'll take you to the mental health place. They'll go get you whatever you need. And those are the people that matter. So it doesn't matter. It's not a bad thing to have a low quantity of friends. What matters is how close you guys are and how strong those relationships are. Like if you can pick up the phone and call them, or if they can pick up the phone and call you, and if they're in that spot and you'll drop anything, that's all you need, is at least one person like that. Everything else is extra.
I It's easy to say, and after the fact, if he would not just said something, I would have done all I can to, do anything really.
Well, it's not your responsibility to notice it, though, is it? I mean, if they're not showing anything, you can only get so much information from someone. If you ask them, hey, what's going on, and they don't tell you what's going on, if they're not showing any outward signs, there's a limit. I mean, the same for me. There's counselors I've worked with who've had people in their, they've worked with, kill themselves or hurt themselves severely. And they're working with them in this profession, in this level of detail. It doesn't mean they did anything wrong as a counselor. Sometimes it's just their client wasn't able to process it, or they weren't showing how bad it was too. They might only be showing the surface level, like an iceberg.
What I have noticed is so deceptively easy to just tell people that everything's all right.
And there's like it's kind of funny, but there was a point not too long ago where I wasn't okay with what was going on in my life, and I was worried about what I might do. And that was within the last 6 months. So it was very recent. And I told my one friend, if I text you or if I'm not doing so well, I want you to do what is effectively a safe word check. And I said, if I say orange, because that was the I'm ready to kill myself with color, if you say check or whatever, or safety check or whatever, and I say orange, that means you need to be calling 911. And the agreement was I would be very honest with her in what I said. I would not lie to her about where I was. I'd tell her I was getting close, or I'd tell her I wasn't doing the best, or I thought about it, but I don't have any intent to do it. And it worked. It was a very interesting system. And it was one I came up with while depressed, and we were able to figure it out. And so if you're able to, with your friends, put together a system that works, so finding out a way to say, hey, look, I want you to cut through all the bullshit. I need you to tell me what's going on. And have them be forward with you. And, if they tell you something that normally would be super embarrassing or super sad, or just like something they don't want anyone to hear, or something they're like, if their wife or husband cheated on them, or if, they got fired, or if they lost their job or something like that, and they don't want anyone to know about it, or something even small that could still have an impact on them. Getting them to be forward with you is such a helpful piece, because if they'll be honest with you, that's really where you start to make the breakthrough.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like you've replayed, this whole situation in your head quite a bit. And
Yeah.
if you could go back, knowing the information you knew then, not now, would you have thought to do anything differently?
Honestly, no. It's
How does that make you feel thinking about that?
that's the part that fucks up your mind. It makes you feel so, like what I described, like being powerless, being useless. You can't
Yeah, it
take
is.
you can't take
Go ahead.
care of a fellow man. It's something that because I'm quite an empathetic person, so I want to help. I want to be there for people, and when you can't, it's frustrating,
Oh, very much so.
and that ends up being very tiring, and where the usual depression things.
Oh, it weighs on you. It's like a heavy weight. I'm the same thing. I'm a counselor by job, and by when I'm not a counselor, I'm the person I want people to come to and talk to me about shit. I love spending my time talking to people about what's going on, to try and be helpful, to try and be an insight. Yeah, I'm probably living, working at home effectively in a way, but it's what I enjoy. It's what really helps me, when I'm not doing so well, knowing that I can actually help other people. That helps me in my own way.
Yeah, I'm also as I started to get over it and deal with it. It's taking joy from all the small things, and what the little that I can do helps a lot.
Like I said, I think at the beginning, if you can, just be that person someone can call, give them that, free pass. If they tell you it's an emergency, or it's, or I'm not sure how I am right now, let them know they can be forward with you. You're not going to judge them. In the moment, they can tell you anything. Think of the most craziest thing, and it doesn't matter. What matters is that they're going to be safe. And
Mm.
I would love to be able to help everyone. I would love to make sure none of this ever happens. There's 22 suicides a day for military and veterans in the United States. 22 a day. Think about it's almost 1 an hour.
Yeah, it's horrible when you hear about how, again, it's hard to, put yourself in a situation, especially when it's a different country,
Oh
like
yeah.
where people feel that they have, served their country and the only way out from their issues is doing something that drastic. It's horrifying.
It is. I mean, I had a guy that was in the shop I worked in the military, and he killed himself because of, I think, if I remember correctly, he had cheated or there was some relationship issues or he was getting divorced, and he ended up killing himself, and he left behind his widow and 2 daughters who were underage. And I mean, they weren't like teenagers. They were like, I think, 8 and 10 or something, like around that range. And that's a horrible thing to live with, especially as a kid growing up.
I can imagine. I was around 20s when this happened to me, and it affected me this much. It's hard to imagine how it affects people who are much younger.
Oh yeah. And especially for kids, they don't know how to always process what happened. And that's very easy to take on the blame and not tell people. You know, kids are very easy. They're very resilient, but they're also very easy to not process things properly. And I know Ninja Bread Man's contributing a little bit more in the chat saying that hindsight is, a gift and a curse because you think afterwards, I would have done this or that. But no, the way you deal with that and it's how you move forward with how you deal with stuff like this is going forward, knowing that you're giving your friends and your family and the people close to you, you're giving them everything you can. That is in a way that doesn't negatively impact you. So you're giving them your 100%, that as much as you can do without hurting yourself, without bringing yourself down or hurting your own personal life. If you're doing that and this still happens and there's no sign, there's nothing, or you tried and it still happens, you did everything you could and there should not be any blame. It's a horrible thing to deal with. It sucks to have gone through, but there is no blame there for what happened.
Yeah.
I mean,
Also, what contributed to my depression more is the struggling with, feeling like I don't want to be a bother. I don't want to bother anyone. So it's like a vicious cycle. Like I have things that I really need to get out, but I don't want to bother anyone with them.
so you're not wanting to like talk to anybody, basically? You're afraid of
And
bugging people, kind of?
now I'm able to talk, but a few years back, not really.
And I go through the same thing. I have friends, and where I'm at right now, I live at a place, and because I was in the military, the people I knew locally have moved away because I bought a house and I stayed in the area where I was last at. And the few people I did know, they've moved to different states, and the friends I do have, they're 500, 1,000 miles away. That's not like I can go visit them. I don't want to bug them. I don't like texting them all the time. I hate being the person that always initiates the conversation, but I still will do it. And it's hard to make that decision sometimes because, like you said, you don't want to bother people. You don't want to feel like a burden, but you also know whenever it's time to do that because it's getting to that point.
So yeah, I have a select people that I know I can go to if I have any issues or if I need to unwind or unload.
So
And
in the I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying that it's a very comforting feeling that even having that you don't have to feel like you are going to be alone with these things, and that also helps you much easier to deal with these things on yourself when you find ways to deal with them.
I mean, there's no truly having it go away. I've, come to that realization myself. And it's kind of, again, a shitty one to realize, knowing that no matter what you do, you'll still have to deal with this. and 30 years from now, you still feel the same as you did that day. Maybe not the same way, but it might feel better in others. But it still is there, and there's nothing you can effectively do about it in certain ways. So the best way to deal with it is coming up with something that will work for you, finding your coping mechanism, finding the way, I call it me time,
Mm.
spending time to take care of yourself, whether that's sitting alone in your bedroom or home office or whatever and browsing the web, if it's shit posting on Reddit, if it's dicking off in a Discord with a bunch of other people. If
Mm.
that's what helps you find your center, then you do it. You got to take care of yourself.
Yeah. For me, it's painting Warhammer miniatures is what's my happy place.
So that's how you kind of deal with stress and pressure when you're not doing that great either.
Yeah, it helps, taking an artistic thing and finding happiness in that, that you're making something instead of looking at things that are going wrong around you.
So what do you do if you can't do painting? Like, do you have a backup?
If it happens that I can't do painting, then if it gets to that point, I'll just talk with people,
Like friends or family or anyone specific?
friends, because when you get burned like that by your family, I'm quite sure that my parents still have the same opinion on mental health. Like my dad called my depression medication sugar pills, for example. So they have a very low opinion on this whole process. So
How'd you feel when he said that?
angry, disappointed,
Why?
but because you would hope that the people closest to you would offer you the most support. But I've accepted that, it's, different times, different periods, different values. So I'll just let it be and not bother
Is it
with them.
is it not possible for them to be able to understand it, or it's just not worth
I
the
have
hassle? Or
I have tried, and like you said, I don't think it's worth the hassle. I have people that I have much easier time, getting to it.
yeah, and like I have.
And that's
Go
again,
ahead.
it goes to the not wanting to be a burden anyway. I don't want to how to say it, make problems they don't see as real problems into problems in their life.
Like, what's
I'll
a
just,
problem they don't see as a real problem?
like my me dealing with depression is that they don't see it as like they just don't get it.
So they don't
And
understand what depression is, or they don't understand
yeah,
why you're
they don't,
depressed.
both really.
What are some of the reasons they think that you shouldn't be depressed? Like, do they rationalize it?
Not really. It's just you should just get happy. It should be that easy in their eyes. Like, stop being sad.
That's a it's a very easy thing to say, but it's very hard to actually do. What the hell does get happy mean? That
Indeed.
means a hell of a lot different to different people. I mean, people are happy being homeless, but having a nice blanket. Other people, they can be rich and have all the things they could ever dream of, but they don't have friends or whatever, and they're not happy. There's so many things that can go up or down with that.
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm like given up on that field, and I don't mind. Like I said, I have a lot of avenues that I can take this to. I always have my occupational psychologist I can go back to anytime I want, and I can always talk to my friends. So I don't have the need for more. I wish they knew more understood better, but you know, sometimes you can't have what you want.
But it's got to be kind of weigh you down a bit that, mom and dad don't treat it like a real problem, I would
It
think.
it doesn't anymore. It's been part of the process, you know.
So it kind of did, but not so much anymore.
It doesn't anymore. It in the beginning it used to bother me a lot when you get into the whole thing of going to psychologist regularly and taking your medication, doing your quote unquote homework. I wish I could have gotten more support from them, but like I said, you can't have it all. I don't resent it at this point. I was probably more angry in the beginning than angry at now.
And it's really good that you've recognized that there's a limit to how far you can try to actually get them to change.
Hmm. You have to
And
pick your battles with depression, really.
yeah, there are certain things to pick. And is it worth, you know, trying to fight with mom and dad to get them to understand what it means to be depressed? Some people want to fight that battle, others don't.
Yeah.
And, I've got my own, my life, I have people that I think are worthwhile of sharing information with. And, you know, I've, tried to kill myself twice and my parents don't even know that.
Hmm.
And it's not necessarily because I don't trust them. I just don't, for me, I just don't know how I'd process that. How I wouldn't want to put that burden on them
Yeah,
because I
absolutely.
know, and, don't get me wrong, I've got ongoing issues with my dad that, I wish that he was in my life a bit more. I'm, older clearly, but I have a brother who's like 8 now, you know, so that's a little bit weird to deal with in a
I can
way.
imagine.
And I haven't really seen him but one or two times since uh, he's been born. I saw him once when he was very young still, and then I think he was like 3 months old when I saw him the first time. And then the second time I saw him at my grandfather's funeral, he was like 5. And, you know, my stepmom had, this is getting a little personal story here, but, my stepmom has some reasons she doesn't like me that I would say are unfounded and are stupid. And she's basically making my dad pick between me and the other kid. And I don't want to be the person that tells my dad, "Hey, you should pick me over your new son." How do I process that? How the hell do I deal with that?
Yeah, that's fucking rough, man.
Because me and my dad had a decent relationship growing up. Wasn't the best. I lived with my mom for a period of time. I lived with my dad through my teen years, and we had a lot in common in certain ways. Other ways, not so much. But now that he's in his 50s now, and he's got an 8-year-old son, and I'm graduated. I've gone to college, and how do I talk to my dad? And because whenever I was like 5 years old, my parents got divorced, and so my dad had to do the whole not being the primary parent thing and only have me on holidays. And if I were to make him pick me now as an adult, and he ends up getting divorced because my stepmom doesn't want to deal with it because she wants her to not, she doesn't want him to associate with me that often. Do I feel responsible for them getting divorced? should I feel responsible for them getting divorced? Like, there's so much to it. And it's like, why should I even bring my parents in when, there's so much going on between us already? And I don't want to add to that. Even though I would normally trust them, I love them, but they're not people I can go to. I have other people I go to. If they heard that and knew that, would they feel bad about it? Maybe. I would think so. I kind of hope so. And, especially around the holidays. It's in America, Thanksgiving just happened. My dad didn't even send me a Thanksgiving message or call me. I think the last time I talked to him was 6 months ago. He very rarely calls. And I'm not trying to get all personal story here. But, this is the shit that starts to stack up on top of the other things I got going on. But it's not an issue I can easily address. It's not something I can, if I share that with someone, kind of like your parents, they'll be like, oh, that's not a big deal. What's a big deal to me? It's a big deal in my life.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, your experience is relative. No one should ever tell you that you're the thing, one of the things they teach us in being a counselor is validating someone's feelings and experience. And it kind of crosses a little bit with the like so-and-so SJW thing about certain phrases and words. But validating someone's experience is such a huge thing. Because what you've gone through with your friend is real. It's real to you.
Yeah.
It should, I can't say what it was like for you. I can only imagine, or I probably can't even imagine. It's very, very difficult. So, fuck, what does that mean? And, why, and having your parents deny you your experience, that only adds to the pain, I would think. Maybe not so much now, but it probably did before.
It did before. But,
it still might now a little bit, right? Even on some level?
Yeah, it stinks still. But,
does it impact the social relationship at all?
No, I have a great relationship with my parents. Every other way but this, except one thing. So it's like the only one thing that's, kinda I wish was different. Everything else is, great with my parents and I.
So that's like the one thing you would want different?
Yes.
Why couldn't it be different? Is there no way to make it different?
Probably if I work more hard for it, but I don't know if it's the kind of battle that, worth all the emotional package that I'm going to put on them and I'm going to put on myself.
Is it worth it to you?
I made a decision that it's not really worth my time and effort to try and, make them, understand something that happened to me so long time ago and something that it's, they don't understand. In general, it's, I think it's, quite, in many cultures, it's, talk about mental health issues is a taboo. It's still very much taboo in Republic of Finland.
So you're from Finland, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it's you said mental health still taboo and up there.
Yeah, it's still discussing mental health is kind of taboo.
Why is that, if I can ask?
I don't know. I'm the most unfinished person there is. But there's a lot of things are like discussing things is taboo, which are, good at things like discussing politics is kind of taboo when you do it in the, in the public field. Kind of like, discussing politics with your friends is not something you do. Discussing money. Yeah, we discussing religion.
It's so odd.
It's
very like the United States.
Yes, I know. It's fascinating difference that we have, but that's kind of what had. Now that I've grown up in the age when internet started to get big, so I noticed that in my country people when they can't talk about these things in in the public sphere, they take it to the internet. So the best things I wish people categorize these things that go in Finnish discussion boards is, fascinating how it's akin to, this American two-party politics with the intensity it is. So with much more vulgarity, I would say.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with vulgarity. You see how much I cuss.
Yes, but I just find it very fascinating because Finnish people, I don't know if you know the stereotype, but they are very, stoic, very quiet. They don't talk a lot. And if
So
they
it's a little
talk, they
bit
are,
atypical.
yes, it's very atypical. And I probably think that's what, fed into this Finnish discussion culture in the internet, is because you can't do it, so freely in the real life, that you take it somewhere that doesn't feel so real, even if they might use, their faces, their real names. Like Facebook will always be fascinating with people yelling at each other.
Well, and I hate Twitter, but I love
I
Twitter.
think I hate and love Twitter too. It's full of people with what I describe. This is not a real thing, but what I describe as people who don't have real issues in their life, making up issues and being mad at them.
I agree with that in a way. I see that, I kind of
Like,
can't.
for example, it's not a big secret that I lean towards LGBTQ. I identify as a pansexual male myself, and what I have grown up, like I told you, I've grown up in rural Finland. The things that I worried about was like town next over, there are people who unironically wore Nazi armbands, military boots, and leather jackets and shaved their heads. That's the things I had to worry about. And while these people worry about, somebody misgendering them, for example, it's
So there is, that's actually an interesting topic because it kind of ties into this whole discussion on depression. Is, for someone, because I work with LGBT population, that's a population I like. That's some people I can relate to. I have friends and personal ties to that. And I specifically took classes on that in grad school. And, for someone going through the process of transition, dealing with a misgendering, if they're not ready for it, can be traumatic to them in a certain way. It
I
can add a lot of stress, but I think people also do take it out of the context and blow it out of proportion in a way.
yes, that's what I'm like. I would never invalidate someone's feelings. I know it must suck that people are not even showing even the slightest moniker of accepting you, or treating you as a human being, is what that must feel fucking horrible to you. I can't really put myself on that shoes. The worst thing happened to me was in in school. I used to date this wonderful lady that was part of a Finnish far left party's youth group, and I used to hang out with those people. And one person in disagreement questioned my sexuality because I did not agree in monetary policy, and that was probably the most hurtful thing about me coming to terms with my sexuality. Somebody denying it to my face, because at least the people who called me a faggot actually acknowledge it, while this person was unpersoning me because I did not agree on matters that are nothing to do with it.
So it
And
was a completely unrelated discussion, and
yes,
it was just on money and policy. And
yes, that's probably why I have so much bitterness. That singular experience, why I have so much bitterness towards these quote unquote HJWs. Because at times I would have described myself as SJW, but things have gone so out of control. And sorry if I'm bringing things to off topic. It's just something that I'm,
no, it's
always
relatable.
very, I wouldn't say passionate, but always, maybe a bit passionate about. It's so weird and fascinating seeing this new crop of gay people coming up, and they are making issues that I see as trivial when when I was worried, I was like, Finland, for example, didn't have gay marriage legal. I have to worry about getting beaten up. At work, I was told that if their son, a coworker of mine who did not know about my sexuality told me to my face that if their son was gay, they would beat the faggotry out of them. This is a direct translation of what they told me.
And so that was your work environment.
Yes.
So when you see that versus these people online, do you believe what they're saying, or do you think it's overhyped?
It's hard because I want to believe that they are feeling these things, but I think they should. Problem is that we're also steering the culture, the gist of it. Now it no longer is, because in America now you're gonna get legally married, I believe, in the whole country.
Yeah,
The battle is the battle is no longer about that. The battle is not about being accepted. No, being gay is now part of the cultural zeitgeist. It's no longer about that. It's about these things that I find trivial, like representation on TV, representation on video games. Everything has to be that, this and that, and if they are not, then they are opposite of it, which is ridiculous.
So the way it is in America versus the way it is now, it's almost a decade or two behind in cultural acceptance, or maybe more.
I wouldn't
That's not
say that,
or maybe not that far, or
I would say that gays are generally very well accepted, but now it's going the other way. I noticed that a lot of people are just I don't remember what the term is, that they just burn out on empathy to these people when they give demands that are ridiculous to quote unquote normal people. I mean, what the fuck is normal? But what a baseline people are.
yeah.
Like, these people are like, why are you crying about these video game characters? I just want to play these video games. Like, stop trying to affect something that's because
I think from my perspective on that, because like I said, I am very supportive of the community. I do work with people in that community, but when I see these fights over things like video game characters and the representation in TV, and I personally find it more harmful than helpful to the whole movement of support and acceptance.
It does, and when I go around going, I'm openly in the internet, I'm openly about my queerness, and then the people apply the things that they see, what the loud people on Twitter do onto me. It's frustrating because I don't give a shit about all that, and it's and then it gives more ammunition to the people that we used to make fun of. And I don't know if you noticed this too, but a lot of SJWs have given themselves the right to be mean spirited, and sometimes downright evil and malicious towards the quote unquote opposition now.
I kind of have seen that too, and I think it's sad because you have people claiming to be supportive on one side, but yet they're causing more distress on the other side. Like, if they were to disagree with me or you, they would lean heavily on us, and does that really help us? Does that really further their end goal? And this is how you can still drive people into these still negative situations, these negative thoughts and feelings.
And I probably, I've always had this, how to say it, not like a third world point of view, but we as a Western world, like especially in America, one of the most tolerant countries in the world, where you act like you are living in a little hellhole, and you look at other countries where people, like, for me it is very personal because I live in an extra country where you cannot even talk about LGBTQ issues or you go to jail. It's horrible.
So you said you live next to countries like that?
in a country, Russia specifically.
And it kind of is similar to like the feminist movement in America versus other countries. Other countries, you know, you can't do anything to as a woman. Your rights are so restricted. You know, gays are still getting thrown off of buildings in certain countries, you know, or shot or murdered. Like, it's sad. It's disgusting, in my opinion, in certain ways.
It's horrible, and instead of working to alleviate lives of those people, we are bickering over nonsense, or what I feel is nonsense. Like, I had a fight with a person that I considered a friend who happens to be a trans person, and they flipped out because I used the word trap.
And I'm sure it's in like a joking manner.
The way I never describe them as a trap. I describe what I describe as a trap, which is anime trope.
Yeah.
I would not call a trans people a trap. That's not how the word has been used for a long time. I do remember in the early ages of 4chan and Encyclopedia Dramatica, traps used to be used as a malicious word to describe trans person, but like over time words just change meaning. Like queer nowadays is a blanket term for certain things.
Yeah, it's definitely the language has evolved a bit, and
this person did not, I did the normal thing. I apologize if I, unintentionally hurt them. But this person, said that, are you going to stop using that word in total? And I'm like, no. I've used the word to describe what I think the word means. I cannot, just because one person doesn't like the word, I will just drop it off my vocabulary, especially when there is no, large. It's not like the N word or the F word. I might use both words, but I'm not going to use them in a way. How to say it? In a way that it's intended to be used.
yeah, I
Like
can. Go ahead.
like in a joking matter, or as part of a joke, maybe, because that's just part part how I cope is I have extremely dark humor, so I derive pleasure and that from very dark humor.
Oh, I'm very much the same. I live and thrive off of dark humor. That's how I deal with half of my problems. Is you
especially
kind of
when
need
it's
it.
especially when it's you can make fun of me. I love that shit. And
Say,
that you go.
go ahead. Well, I think it's a necessary thing. I think as a human being, you know, we recognize there are very shitty things we have to deal with in our lives. And I think the best way to deal with them is to kind of joke about it. I mean, I've been on fires and car accidents when I was a firefighter where people died, and we'd go back to the station and joke about it. But
Mhm.
doesn't mean we don't sympathize with what happened. Doesn't mean we don't care. It's just how you process it.
Yes, it's weird with the certain aspect of SJW culture now. It's like, you can no longer joke about things. You can no longer take things in stride. And it's
Yeah.
very, very sad that you are start language policing people like that. And I again take Russia for example. I fucking love freedom of speech.
Oh, me too.
I don't have freedom of speech. I
That's
live in a
sad.
country that doesn't have freedom of speech. And that's of course is very how to say it, like very extreme way of saying it. In my country you can say pretty much everything. There are some quirks about it, like in my country you cannot burn the national flag, otherwise you go to jail.
Really.
Yeah, we love our fucking flag, but in America, where freedom of speech hopefully continues to be a thing, you can burn the flag as to show your disapproval.
Oh yeah. Say I was in the military. I love my country. I supported my country. in the ways my mission did, I personally wouldn't burn a flag, but it is protected speech to burn a flag. I
And
don't
it's a personal choice, really. You don't have
exactly.
to burn a flag if somebody else wants to burn a flag. I don't want people to call people N words, F words in a way that it's malicious, but I I don't think it should be, taken away from people. Like
Yeah,
I look at over the border in Russia, you can't talk about gay people. It's illegal. You go to jail.
for talking
That's
about gay people
yeah. It is. You cannot talk about gay people.
at all. Like you can't bring it up at
I
all.
I don't know if it's at all. I know it's at least in educational media settings. You cannot talk about it at all.
And so, do you have hate speech laws in your country?
Yeah, we have a lot of hate speech laws. I cannot
It's
criticize the religions, for example. Otherwise, I get fined.
really any religion or certain religions.
It should be, but at times it feels it's only applied to one religion.
I think I know which one you're hinting at, which is
Yeah,
also sad.
it's very sad. You can't criticize anything, especially if it's towards the minority. Like I don't know if you saw this, but there was this African American individual who told Sony and Microsoft that, hey, I don't see people of my kind reviewing your console, so can you send me a free console? And people were criticizing that, and automatically, because you criticize that, it's a race issue or a gender
I,
issue, because this person was also female.
I don't like that. Just like I don't like if someone disagrees with a trans person or gay person, you're automatically. I think it hurts. Like for me, if I'm have a legitimate criticism about someone, even if it's related to the topic, it doesn't mean I have a problem with it. I'm very open for gay marriage and support trans people. I am working with a client right now who is 12, almost 13 years old, who is working on transitioning. They've socially transitioned. They are wanting to start their hormonal transition, their medical transition by taking puberty blockers. I'm very supportive of it. But yet, I can tell you, I've been called transphobic more times than I can fucking
Uh,
count.
same.
And it's sad.
It's very sad. I know it's like sounds like an excuse, like I have a black friend. I have dated a trans person, so I don't know when you criticize these things. Like one time, I generally asked out of curiosity that why does surgery has to be this end goal of transition? Because it's a very radical thing that they do, and I know that there are some people it kind of has to be the end goal for some people. But the thing is that we are pushing that as the end goal for very people who are in a very vulnerable position. And this is mostly me speaking out of ignorance and curiosity, then rather than actual malice or anything else.
Yeah.
Because I know, like I know a lot of trans people. I know people who have transitioned, and I know people who also have not transitioned. Like you say, they had transitioned socially, but they had not transitioned physically. They've taken, hormone blockers and all that, but they have not gone through the surgery, and they find their place in that.
Yeah, and there's each person's transition is unique, to them.
Yeah, yeah. I just,
And go ahead.
like my main, I wouldn't say an issue, but my main is like why we. Again, English is not my first language, so I'm trying to, when I imagine words that they might be more extreme than I want them to be. Like, if I would say, for example, like we would peddle the transition surgery as the end goal, might come off like mean-spirited sounding, I guess.
Well, I have that client I mentioned, and one thing I talked to with the family, because I did a session, my first session with the family and the client, and I explained to him, because he's a female to male, I explained to him and his parents, I was like, one of the most important things is recognizing what it means to transition, and that you're becoming a transgender male, not a male, and what it means to be a transgender man, and what you will have and what you won't have, and what that means. And if you do take hormones and you do hormonally transition, and you do surgically transition, what happens if you do all that and you still don't feel better? Like, are you okay with that? Because that's a realistic outcome.
Yeah, I'm read. I think it was in Reddit about the transitioning. It sounds very rough, very
It's
sad.
difficult. It's not easy. It's
It,
very hard to go through.
and I started reading about this because I saw a lot of trans people criticizing these people because these are people who try to apply other people's experiences onto them. Like if transition worked out for you, good, but it doesn't work out for these people. And there are people
Yeah.
who really need support for this. And it's just, again, we have, allowed, these people allowed themselves to be so mean-spirited towards each other. And especially when it does, start, attacking, each other, which is, I would think that I have, started to see that, readiness to, play what I call oppression Olympics, that, I have I'm up much higher on this ladder rank because, I have X, Y, and Z and you don't. Like in all of this hierarchy of gayness, I'm quite low because of, my, and I accept that I have much more privilege than a lot of these people.
Yeah. And so I think today was an interesting chat. I know we veered off topic a little bit, but I
Yeah,
do
sorry
think
about that.
no, I'm really, I have ADHD myself. I'm very bad about it too. We veered off topic a bit, but I think we had a good discussion. Like I explained to people at the beginning, this is my first go around at doing this on my own. I appreciate the few viewers we've had today, and thank you for coming on as well. I definitely want to do this again sometime soon. I don't know when the consistency, how regular it will be. I want to aim for something like that. Today just happened to work out, and I wanted to get it done because I had the time off. So, if you want to come back, you're welcome to come back. It was good to have someone to bounce ideas off of. So, doing the rackets thing of talking by yourself is a little hard.
It is very hard. Absolutely. If you ever will want me back here, just talk about anything. Just hit me up.
Oh yeah, say you're welcome to come on. Again, Gingerbread Man and Woo, you're both have been in chat. You're both welcome to come on. Anyone, I put it on the bottom in the scroll thingy, the little ticker. I have set up a voicemail account to people can call in and leave voicemails if they have questions, or if they have topics they want discussed, they can call and leave a message if they don't want to actually be on the show. That's an option too. You can leave a short voicemail, talk about any topic. I didn't have any for today, but definitely we'll bring them on next time if anyone leaves them. I fully expect to get a few troll voicemails. I look forward to those ones. I'm sure they'll come. But, I hope to do this again soon. I know the holidays are coming up. So I'd like I said at the beginning, if anyone's going through shit, reach out to me. Reach out to someone else. I will be happy to set aside a little bit of my time that I can to help you either get through the urgency of the situation or help you find a better way to deal with it or find resources in your area. If it's the States, it's a lot easier for me. If it's outside the States, I'll do what I can. So, is there anything you wanted to add to the end there, Kak, or?
Not really. If you need to reach out, please do reach out. And if you're in Nick's Discord, my DMs are always open about anything you really want. I'm always willing to listen, and if I can help, I will help. If there's something I cannot help with, I usually will aim to try and point you towards a direction where you can go get actual help or pair you up with a person that can help.
So, let's see here. I've got a 6-minute video that I'd like to end on. What we'll do is I'll play this video and then I think we'll just go ahead and close the show out. So I think it'll be a good way to end it. It is the other video that I watch whenever I'm very depressed or I'm at that level. So let's see if this works. I should share the audio so you can hear it too and see it. If not, let me know in the private chat and we'll see if I can always link you the video as well to play along with if you want to hear it. So say it was again a pleasure to have everyone here today. I look forward to doing these more often and having people on as well. My goal is to help make an impact in the ways I can outside of my professional life. Again, this isn't real counseling. This is kind of more shooting the shit, going back and forth, but you'd be surprised at how much you can help. So let me go ahead and throw this up here on the screen and let it run. Again, thanks everyone for coming today, and I hope you like this. Again, I hope it helps you realize the impact that suicide can have on the loved ones around you and on the people in your life. So again, feel free to reach out to myself, Keck, Nick, if you're in the Discord. I don't think I have my email up yet on my YouTube profile. I'll get that up soon. Always call the suicide hotline. That's always an option. I know the number's out there. It's very easy to find. There's websites like 7 Cups, which you can just chat with random people who are kind of trained in active listening, just to kind of talk with, just to let things out. So there's a bunch of stuff out there. Utilize it. It's very important. But I'll go ahead and jump into this video. Everyone have a good night. Keck, if you want to stay after, just to close things out, I'll talk to you real quick after. But I'll go ahead
Sure.
and play this here.
Okay, well, this is very serious, and I don't know if I should address it because I'm somewhat tired, but I'll give it a shot because it's important. Now, it's very serious and troublesome question. I plan on taking my own life very soon. Why shouldn't I? Well, I'm going to assume this isn't a casual question, that's being put out for the purposes of display. Well, the first thing I would say is you have to think very carefully through the consequences of that for other people. So I've had clients in my clinical practice who never recovered from the suicide of a family member. Decades later, they're still torturing themselves about it. And so that's what you leave behind. Now, the problem is you might be dreaming about that, because maybe you're feeling that life has been twisted against you and that people deserve to suffer for the misery that they've imposed upon you. But I would say think very, very carefully before you go down that route. It's a terrible thing to leave people with. And so part of the reason that suicide has been illegal in most societies is because it absolutely devastates the people you leave behind. And you might think, well, if you're really depressed, then maybe you're really depressed. That's a possibility. You might think, well, those people would be better off without me. It's like, and if you get really depressed, you can think that way, and you can even get to the point where you can't think any other way than that. And I would say, if you're at the point where you can't think any other way than that, then you should tell someone and you should go to the hospital. Because that can happen, and it can happen if you get depressed. And there are treatments for depression, and many of them work. For some people, antidepressants work like mad. Now, they don't work for everyone, and I'm not claiming that they're a panacea, but they certainly beat the hell out of suicide. Right, and even if they have some negative side effects, and sometimes they do, quite frequently they do, the negative side effects aren't fatal. It's like, well, there's the possibility that your condition is physical, that you're ill in some way, either physically or perhaps you have a psychological problem. Maybe you were hurt, or there's lots of reasons that people get depressed that are very, very complex. I would say don't give up hope Don't give up hope and do something final before you've explored all possible options. And if you haven't talked to a psychologist, you haven't talked to a psychiatrist, you haven't tried antidepressants, you haven't revealed to your family or people that care for you that this is how you're feeling, then you owe it to yourself and them to explore every possible avenue before you take such a step. And then you don't want to deprive the world of what you can bring to the world. That's the other thing, you have intrinsic value, and you can't just casually bring that to an end. You leave a hole in the fabric of being itself. So, and a wise man that I once worked with said, he was a very strange person. He was a psychologist at the maximum security prison in Edmonton, and I worked with him for a while. Briefly, very briefly, at the prison itself. And he said, you can always commit suicide tomorrow. And that's a very, it's a flippant statement in some sense, but he meant it in a very serious way. It's like, you only get to decide that once, and you can put it off. And so I would say just put it off, and then put it off some more, and then put it off some more, and see what you can do to put yourself together. You explore every possible option. And if you're so hopeless that you have a suicidal plan, which is a real sign of danger, if you really know how you would do it and you've thought it out, then I would say, tell someone, for God's sake, tell them, or go to a hospital and tell them. And for sure, try antidepressants, but what the hell do you have to lose? So do everything you possibly can to address the issue before you do something like that. And do give some thought to the people that you're going to leave behind, because believe me, you may just absolutely wipe them out in a way that they will never recover from. You cannot fix someone's suicide. You're stuck with it. And you think you torture yourself for the rest of your life. If I would have only known, if I would have only said something different. This particular client talked to her relative, a sibling, who committed suicide, like 20 minutes before he committed suicide, probably after he took the pills. And she was kind of preoccupied because you don't know that the person at the other end is at the end of their tether. And she never forgave herself for not responding properly in that last phone call. That's a hell of a thing to leave someone with. So I would say, and the final thing I would say is, don't be so sure that your life is yours to take. You don't own yourself the way that you own an object. You have a moral obligation to yourself as a locus of divine value, let's say. You can't treat that casually. It's wrong. So those are the reasons. Explore everything you can explore to put yourself back on your feet. All the things. There's all sorts of treatments for depression. Don't leave the people around you with that to suffer from for the rest of their lives. Don't underestimate your value in the world. And don't underestimate the fact that suicide is wrong. And so those are 4 reasons why you shouldn't end your life soon, or at all, for that matter. So